6, we'll be studying the industrial policy framework as it evolved from the time of independence till now. We have already covered in the Indian financial system, and today we will be covering the industrial growth and how from 1947-48 we have progressed so far. Now let us look at the objectives which you will be able to learn after this session. One, you will be able to trace the evolution of industrial policy, how the policy has developed over the years. You'll be able to describe the framework of industrial policy formulation of India. You'll be identifying the gaps in previous industrial policies and the need for new industrial policy. And this new industrial policy was when we went for liberation, globalization, and etc. That is 1991. Analyze the benefits and gaps of the present industrial policy. Even the new industrial policy has there some benefits as well as some shortcomings. We will understand that. We will not draw a comparison between state-specific industrial policies in India, but we will learn some of the states broadly, how the different states had drawn their own specific industrial policies, and thereby they have developed industrially. And finally, assess the importance of other policies supplementing industrial policy. How industrial policy can get a boost because of the other policies are around. So this is the objective we'll be learning today. And before that, before I go to introduction, or let me go to the introduction and then I'll brief you all. When we got independence in 1947, we were a really naked country in the sense we were poverty stricken, we didn't have any capital, Britishers looted everything, and we didn't have the adequately trained manpower, which is very important for development. We didn't have much infrastructure, roads, railways, whatever Britishers built for their own benefit, that we had. So basically, what we received was a dilapidated state of the country. And on top of that, there were different political, Raj or Zamindars and other systems are there. So that is a political part of it. But they were very much part of India, like Hyderabad, Jammu Kashmir, and then Rajasthan, then Gwalior and various areas which were not strictly under the Indian government or the government of India, which got the independence. But due to Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, slowly a lot of these princely states, as they are called, they merged with India at various times. So, in spite of all these odds, we had a bunch of, we had a lot of learned as well as educated people in the hem of affairs, and so we could conceive a policy. And the first policy was the Industrial Policy Resolution 1948. Nehru, along with his team, could understand that if we want to, every country want to develop. So if you want to develop, we need to have industrial growth. So because we have mineral, we need to build the railways, we need to build the roadways, we need to build the port, we need to build the steel. For all these things, we need steel. For this, we need power. And all these things are there, and there should be a planned way of developing. So the very process of planned development came in, and there was a planning commission at that time, which is not there. So the first Industrial Policy Resolution of 1948 outlined and defined the role of state in industrial development, both as entrepreneur and authority. What do I mean by that? Center as well as state. So there is a role of both center and state as an entrepreneur. That means state can print money, government can print money, so government can act as a promoter, as well as some of the business people who were doing trading. Or Jamshedji already has set up the steel plant. Banpur made, there was already Indian Iron and Steel Company, and similarly Chennai side made, there was already Madurai and other places. There was a cotton textile mills in Bombay, etc. So they said, ki, okay, let's have the policy where state can be an entrepreneur as well as state will be the controlling body. So with that and the planning commission later on, and the finally 1951 May, we enacted Industrial Development and Regulation Act. Because what happens is that this also allowed Indian government to direct investment into preferred areas of industrial activity through the mechanism of licensing and keeping abreast with national development objective. So we must remember here that this time I have less capital in hand. So I need to prioritize which are the area I should be developing. Okay, so that time producing soaps and other things were not the priority of the government. Government's priority was developing infrastructure or big industries which will make machines, capital goods, which will be used to construct road, railways, power plant, etc. So the national development objectives kya hai? All these things keeping in mind, this industrial development is required, and regulation is required, because the money should not go to the other areas so that we fall short of money in the area we want to develop. To achieve sustainable growth, the policy explored prospects to deregulate. Now, after that, this is 1951, I jumped to 1991, this 40 years may, there are different phases may, we have opened up certain sectors, we have realized there is a concentration of production capacity in some business groups were getting advantages, etc., etc. But it was not delivering the development objectives the way nation wanted. So in 1991, the economic reforms envisioned new and substantial role of private entities. Because what happened in these 40 years, there was a lot of IITs, IIMs, and NIT, those were regional teaching colleges. So a lot of engineers, technical people, ITIs are prepared. So there were also a lot of entrepreneurs, private entrepreneurs, who set up small scale industries. They moved to the medium scale. They needed some funding. So, and also government went for joint ventures. So the government puts in 26%, other person puts in 25%, and the balance is taken from loan from the different institutions. Like this, the progress was happening. But there was a lot of shortcomings. As we progress, we'll come to know about it. That is why in 1991 we were in a very deep problem. First of all, as you will see that our balance of payment situation was very bad. Our industrial growth was stagnating, and we were in a very skewed economy. You can say that there is one part of the people who are enjoying the benefit, other persons who are not enjoying the benefit. So in 91, we wanted to have economic reform, big bang reform, as it is called. So that substantial role of private entities. In view of this, the policy has been progressively liberalized over the years. Now, industrial policy framework and features. Let us come back a little bit. Indian economy was being built into a self-reliant. आज हम आत्मनिर्भर another thing का बात बोलते हैं. But when we started off, we also started with a self-reliant, self-sustained unit with an aim to achieve industrial-led growth. So what we planned, we will be self-sustained, self-reliant, industrial-led growth. The policy environment relied on import substitution, inward growth, and subsidization. So what was happening actually? So suppose I want to build a car. So there was only Ambassador and Fiat बोल के एक गाड़ी था. There was no other private cars, and import was very expensive, and we are unable to design cars, so there was no competition as such. So self-reliance and self-sustained economic ka chakkar mein, what was happening? We were rediscovering the wheels. So, but at the same time, public sector, government spent a lot of money in public sector. If you are aware, during the economic study that we studied about the financial, 5-year plans. So government planned a lot of public sector investments. So there was Rourkela steel plant, there was Vilai steel plant, there was Durgapur steel plant, then there was a Vizag steel plant, and different steel plants. Then National Thermal Power Corporation came in. They put up a lot of power plants because what happened is that at that time, Indian entrepreneurs did not have that much of money to put it there. But government, that is why the entrepreneurial role of government was important. Okay, so so public sector became all pervasive. Every area you were thinking, and because of the incompetence of the management, or there is a lack of demand because people were not very rich or economically not very well off, so demand was not going up. So you were not, even if you are setting up a factory, your product selling was not happening because buying power was less. So that is why a lot of companies were becoming sick and public sector was taking it over. So in this process, public sector became a very phenomenal expansion. Some enjoyed economic prosperity like BHEL, BEL. BHEL means Bharat Heavy Electrics Limited, BEML, Bharat Art Movers Limited, who are manufacturing rolling stock, that is railways and other things. So these, some of the Hindustan Aeronautics Limited, who are making or maintaining the planes and other things. So some of the companies, public sector, NTPC, because they are producing power, NHPC, National Hydel Power Project, they were also power, so they were growing. But at the same time, there was a lot of public sector companies, national textile corporations and things. They were unable to cope up with the modernization which was happening outside the public sector. So the reform started after 1995. 91 to 95 was a very crucial period for Indian economy when we were trying to cope up with the opening up of the economy, liberation of the economy, globalization of the economy, and we were facing the pressure from outside. There is something called Bombay Club. The manufacturers are industrialists who are in Mumbai. And then it was observed that a lot of young entrepreneurs entered the competitive economy. In fact, Dhirubhai Ambani, then you have HCL Infotech, which is now HCL Infotech, Hindustan Computers Limited. They were making computers. They started making computers. So a lot of young entrepreneurs started entering into the economy. Tariff rates started dropping down. So if you reduce the import duty, then I can import at a lesser cost, assemble here, and sell here at a lesser cost. So people will buy. So there will be demand for these products. So that is what, and in this is the time when the Maruti, that is the Suzuki, Maruti Suzuki motor also started. First, they were bringing the whole car complete knocked down, that is all parts and then assembled here, and then semi knocked down. Some parts are getting manufactured here and then assembled here. Like this, they started, this momentum was building up. So MNCs started entering India in greater numbers because they found that, okay, this economy is slowly growing. That means there was at that time we had 100 crores plus populations, and that's a huge market. If I take the only young or government sector, the banking sector, and other things, these employees who has the buying power, that was a mini Europe. So these MNCs, they thought, why not we enter India? And many of the companies, like I told you, Suzuki entered. After Suzuki, then there was Hyundai entered in the automobile segment. Then a lot of other companies, and similarly in the different segment, many multinational companies also started entering India. Bosch was already there. Bosch, they make the automobile and critical components. Hindustan Lever was already there. Procter Gamble was already there. These are the consumer goods manufacturing. But industrial goods manufacturing, Mitsubishi, Marubeni, all these Japanese companies tried to tie up with the Indian companies. Okay, we had a tie-up with Mercedes-Benz and Tata to make the trucks, which was also broken later on. but Tata tied up with somebody else to make good quality trucks. So this is how the industry was evolving. Also, changes in industrial licensing policy. At least, as I told you in the earlier chapter, this 1991 when we had the economic reforms. The 1991 we had economic reforms. At that time, there was a lot of industrial licensing policy was changed. Control of monopolies and economic concentration, we wanted to remove it. Policies regarding technology import was allowed with financial and fiscal policies. So what has happened is that okay, you can import. Suppose some foreign I want to tie up. Okay, so it was told that okay, you bring in your technology also, you bring in your money. It's not only money. You will not share the technology. Is nahi chalega. So you bring in technology. Maybe with a 5 years or 10 years time frame, we will be starting making the whole thing here. Like that, a lot of manufacturing companies came in India, and fiscal policies. Fiscal policies means government of India, they decide the policies. Ki I will give you incentive if you manufacture here. If you import partly and partly you manufacture here, and then you export partly and partly you market in India, then I give you X benefit. Like this, different type of financial and fiscal policies were prepared affecting the provision of industrial finance. So there was IDBI, there was ICICI. These are all development financial institutions. So they were ready to finance these development activities. And also what happened thus, during this time also the stock market first time tasted the retail participation increases, and the capital market 1992 where SEBI was formed and National Stock Exchange came into operation. So capital market SEBI, you can raise money from the savers. So this capital market where when you put up equity, it's called risk capital. So risk capital was less in India, but with opening up of the economy and the modernization of the capital market, some of the Indians also were trying to put their money into the capital market. So the risk capital was available domestically also. Also, we needed a lot of risk capital from outside. That is why foreign direct investments were allowed. So fiscal incentive, disincentive to some investment and production influence industrial growth. A look through the future of industrial policy will be focused upon. So now we'll look through the industrial policy will be focused. So industrial policy and strategy. As I told you, after the first financial first planning commission ka 51 to 56. 56 to 61 was the second policy. That time we came with the industrial policy resolution, and that laid the foundation for heavy machine industries like Heavy Engineering Corporation in Ranchi. You have Bharat Heavy Electricals in Hyderabad and some other places also. So they will be making capital goods. Okay, like Bharat Heavy will make turbine which can generate, which will be used for electric power plants, etc. Bharat Earth Movers Limited were set up, which will be making dumpers, trucks. Also, they will be making railway engines, materials, etc., etc. Then they said also let us involve private sector, because by that time Birla, Modi and Tatas and other Mahindra, they did have capital, not to the extent they have now, but they wanted to make them also partner in progress. It was decided the public sector will take the load with heavy industries, because that needed a massive investment. If you set up a Bokaro steel plant or a Vilayat steel plant, it has to be outside the city. There is needed of quarters, there is needed of hospitals, there is needed of schools. So all these non-productive investment are required. So public sector decided ki, okay, heavy industry base should be built up by the public sector, and let the medium and small size be taken care of by the private sector, and some places it will be joint sector where heavy industry or medium sized industries can be jointly put up by government sector as well as private sector or combinedly. Also, they emphasize the Mahatma Gandhi's that cooperative principle. So these cooperative principles, they can teach these textiles, particularly, and handloom sector, also given what a focus. It was subsidized to a great extent by government, but it gave a large scale employment. You have to see that country progresses means that people should progress. Okay, their lifestyle should improve. So cooperative sector was also encouraged with the subsidies and other things, and they were also making a lot of textile products and other things, from towels to saris to dhotis to textile in which you make your shirts, pants, etc. And government classified industry into three groups. Group A is barring the industries for which permission had already been given, seven new industries to be set up by the state, 17 new industries to be set up by state. Private sector industries, 12 in number, to be set up with an aim to supplement the effort of the state. So they said, okay, mini generator, mini power plants and other things, government, private sector can set up this engine by making units and other things, but the large things will be with the state government. Okay, hydel power projects like that. And second, Schedule C was the development issue was left entirely to the private sector, barring this 17 plus 12, 29 above. So 17 in new industry sector, alumina, zinc, all these mineral-based industries, as well as heavy industries. Okay. Then there was a private sector made, there were 12 number to be set up by, so there was some pharmaceuticals, there were some other things which will be private sector can put in their money there. And then rest were kept open for anybody, mainly private sector can do with it. But the industrial licensing was there. So licensing formed the backbone of state policy. So I will restrict growth of a particular segment and allocation of money in a particular segment. So I'll give license for electricity. I know this type of electricity demand. Uska बाद हम license नहीं देगा. This type of cement demand will be there. Demand forecast करके. So this type of cement capacity I will be producing. So that much license I will give like this. So license allotted to a manufacturing unit basically specified to the whereabouts of the unit, कहाँ पर unit होगा, what are they will be manufacturing, period within which the industrial capacity is to be established. 3 साल का अंदर, 2 साल का अंदर में you have to set up the plant, because see, if I want to make hydel project, I need cement. If I have a housing scheme government designs, then I need cements. So I need so much tons of cement to be produced by the next 2 years or 3 years. So the license will be given ki, okay, 2 years or 3 years ke andar mein you have to set up the cement plant and etc. So this is what the policies were drawn after the second planning year. In between, there are certain acts, legislative framework were drawn, because you need a legal framework within which industrial policy should move. The first was, as I told you, industrial development regulation, where government will give priority to the certificate of registration, new industry to be recognized as industrial units only after obtaining a license. So you need a license from the government to manufacture anything and everything, almost, except those who are reserved for small scale industries, etc. Monopoly and restrictive trade practices. This was primarily role to control and curtail concentration of economic influence. So Birla takes all the cement, then they can dictate terms, cement price can be unfair trade practices they can follow. So this is why the control of monopolistic trade practices and restrict unfair trade practices. But unfortunately, I'll share, in spite of this, sometimes these manufacturers used to form a cartel, and they used to know that iska niche will not go, price will keep the price above this or something like that, and time to time government has to intervene on these things. Third came the very important act, because India didn't have foreign exchange. Now we have $600 billion plus in different currencies. We had very less foreign exchange, whichever comes from United Nations or donations from other countries, etc. But our export was very low, so our earning was less, but our import requirement was very high, because our whole petroleum economy was running on imported petrol. So foreign exchange regulation becomes a very important fact. So this was enacted to control the acquisition of foreign exchange and holding foreign exchange. In fact, all foreign exchange are RBI's. Yesterday we taught that RBI is the custodian of all foreign exchange. So FERA 1973 was a improvement of 47 May when we got independence. Then and then we had to make some rules about foreign exchange so that it does not go outside India. People do not take away dollars and etc. And whatever comes in, we restrict the moving out except our basic necessary goods. That was improvised in 73, and some amount of room was made for essential imports and the imports which can be used to make exportable goods, so that I bring in $100 worth of import and then I add value to it and export it at $200. So like this changes are made, but these were the three main laws, and beside that there are many other subsidiary laws, Factories Act and Boilers Act, etc., etc., etc. So, but these three acts were the pillars. It was obligatory to take permission from Reserve Bank of India to carry out any international trade activity, either commercial or industrial in nature. In fact, that's even now it is required, because you will be remitting foreign exchange and receiving foreign exchange. So RBI say you get a license. Okay, Director General of Foreign Trade, they give you the license. Who gives you? Director General of Foreign Trade. Okay, so this is the legislative framework. Now, phase of liberation. So a country is not static; it is dynamic. People are studying, they are growing, their aspirations are growing. They want job. So all these things also starts happening post independence. First 15 years was very difficult, but by that time we had a lot of graduates coming out, lot of job requirement, etc., etc. So mid 70s, initial approach I told you was to safeguard and protect the Indian industry, which was left over, and initial stages of development economic fluctuations. Mid 70s and onwards, during mid 70s, advancement and experimentation with internal trade witnessed liberation, as I told you just now. Licensing policy underwent constant changes on complex features during 70s and 80s. A licensing policy, suppose I want to manufacture certain things, I need imported goods. How much I will export? Okay. Do I import and make it totally for domestic, or I export? Same thing happened with the pharmaceuticals. They were importing a lot of chemicals which are required to make pharmaceuticals, but they were ultimately exporting pharmaceutical products to Europe, America, not Europe, America and Africa and other places, and generating dollars. So restricted case to case basis, licensing was given, liberation was moving in. In mid 1980s, we could understand that we are not progressing much. So to keep a check on fiscal, monetary, trade policies, industrial policies was reoriented and gained a push after mid 1980s. Mid 1980s, actually, the first liberation started, which we ultimately seen the full-blown case in 1991. Why the need of accelerated growth? An improvement in imports meant improvement in production. Hence, imports were given attention. So, if I import certain items which are much better finished, another thing, my product will also be good. And if my product is good, maybe I will be also able to export it to somewhere. So, second part is amplified exports to pay for increased imports. Avoid risk of heavy debt burden, because if my petroleum import and other things, my food, a lot of things we used to import. So my balance of payment, the amount I import and the amount I export, the difference is my balance of payment. And also the foreign investment which is coming in at that time, not much. So we were always running short of capital, dollar capital in the sense. So progress in terms of sharpening of competitive base of exportable goods, etc. So these are the need for accelerated growth. It was realized in the mid 90s, 80s. Domestic resource condition was also very precarious because 1970s May, because of the oil crisis, the oil prices shoot up like anything. So, and we were majorly we were importing oil for our movement, for generating electricity, running your diesel locomotive, etc., etc. So, government budget was also falling short. That means fiscal deficit was happening. Government was not generating enough money to pump in the for the growth. Defense spending was not possible to reduce. Subsidies can be reduced. So, like handloom, I was giving certificate so that farmer get fertilizer at a subsidized rate so that they can produce agriculture product. People can eat. People are not hungry. So, so the subsidy can also be reduced, not drastically, at a slow pace, which the country can absorb. But there is political problems. If you reduce the subsidy, then Kishan Andolan and other thing will start. So there was a lot of problems government was facing in mobilizing the money, and government was running short of funds. That is domestic. On top of this, there was a huge amount of imports, but there was not much of exports because we were being inward looking economy, being self reliant, we have missed the bus, and our products are not qualitatively competitive enough in the global context. So we are not exporting that much except the basic raw material or some leather goods or some garments and etc. etc. Nothing patented, nothing much to write home about. So the only way available government to tax corporates or tax individuals and collect money, and that also has a negative reaction because if you tax, then the people will not spend, the demand will come down. Similarly, companies, if they are taxed, then main money goes to the government. Companies cannot develop or invest in the modernization, etc. All these problems were accumulated by the time 1980 is coming to an end, and we were left with the only couple of months importable item. So at that, with this problem, we landed into 1990s. So at that time, by late 1980s, economic imbalances reached precarious levels. It was understood that growth strategy pursued earlier was not sustainable. So the socialistic pattern of growth that was, though there was capital, it was a mixed economy. There was capital from the private sector also, but it was not possible to have the growth which is desired for a country of our size. And the deficit financing government was doing, that means government was collecting tax and spending, printing money, that is, which was not sustainable for the long run. A rise in balance of payment deficit, because you cannot print dollars, you can print rupee. That increases inflation. But when dollar comes short, you cannot import things from outside. And your basic goods, petroleum products is one, a lot of food items you have to import from outside, a lot of basic industrial input has to be imported from outside. So you are in a precarious condition. At that junction, a new set of policy structure and new objectives gave birth to a revised policy, and the era of new industrial policy was announced in July 24, 1991. July 24, 1991 saw a new reimagined India where they liberalized the economy, they globalized, and they focused on improving and maintaining sustained growth in industrial productivity with ample employment opportunity. A major area of attention was to achieve international competitiveness. So, what are the alternation of policy? With a new wave, industrial licensing was eliminated. No license chahiye. If you want to produce and competitively produce, you produce. For all projects, excluding some basics, industries specifically cited to procure industrial licenses are distilleries and alcoholic drinks, so that you don't make only alcohol and other thing and people are drinking all the time. So there was some restriction on that. Defense equipment, aircraft, warship, aerospace substitute. There was a embargo on that. On public sector enterprises can only manufacture that. Interestingly, as of now, when I am taking this session, a lot of these policies have also gone through changes. Then comes the industrial explosives. Now, this is used for mining and as well as it can be used for the defense purposes. So, this production also restricted and licensed. And then finally, there was the tobacco products because these are the seen goods. So, distillery and alcohol, these are the seen goods. So, they are restricted so that capital does not go to this direction. Any other industry you want to produce, you can invest your way. But defense and industrial explosive, because industrial explosives, you will get license marginally depending on your project and etc. But defense equipment was totally under the public sector undertaking. There were three more industry groups exclusively reserved for the public sectors. Well, I said defense was reserved for public sector and industrial explosive also restricted license. बाकी सब license दे दिया. बाकी three जो government kept for himself or the public sector, that was generation of atomic energy. So Indian Atomic Energy Commission, substances notified by the Department of Atomic Energy. So Atomic Energy Department, if they say that these are the things should not be made in the public sector, I mean private sector, so those products should not be made in the public sector. And finally, the railways. So railways will not be privatized, but private funds were permitted with a limited amount. There is a company called Indian Railway Finance Corporation. They were allowed to raise money from the public because after all, Indian Railway Finance Corporation was owned by government. So they can raise debt capital from the public and use to lay down the railway tracks, buy new wagons and lease it to the railways, etc., etc. So these are the drastic change happened in 1991 July. Alterations in policy, foreign investments. Now I am coming to little more details. Barring a few sensitive sectors, as we discussed now, automatic approval is available to foreign direct investment. So you want to collaborate with Vodafone? Yes, you are allowed. You want to collaborate with somebody else? You are allowed. In almost all sectors. So we found Mahindra collaborating with Marubeni to make agricultural equipments. Okay, and Sundaram, that is, they were massive Ferguson tractors, and we found a lot of car companies came with the collaboration with the foreign companies, and that's why foreign direct investment was allowed. In fact, some of the 100% FDI was allowed in some of the industries. You found the Coca-Cola coming in, you found Pepsi coming in, you found a lot of Domino's pizzas coming in, etc., etc. So a lot of foreign indirect investments coming. What happened? If they come in investment, they come with the dollar. So government of India is getting the dollar. So government of India's dollar balance is also going up. So now government of India can afford to import certain things also. Now companies which are involved in export of products, majority foreign equity holding up to 51% were allowed for an easy access to international market. So if I am ready to manufacture something like Maruti, you will not believe, major sizable portion they export to the Europe and other countries. Similarly, the Volkswagen and other companies who are manufacturing, they are making it a manufacturing base in Chennai side and other places and exporting the bulk of the products. So they are saying if you are going to export, then you are free to bring in foreign capital, set up the plant and exports. Now, as I am taking this session, you know that 50% of the iPhone, which is Americans use, are assembled in India and exported to US. So this type of liberation we have gone to. For negotiation with international firms and for approval of direct foreign investment, so there was a foreign investment promotion board. You have to give your proposal. They find it's good for the country, it's beneficial for the country. Okay, permission given. No license restriction. Foreign technology agreement. Suppose some foreign country they don't want to set up the plant here, but they don't mind to give their technology to manufacture. Okay, so then it was an agreement, and there was priority sector because priority technologies are not sellable generally, like defense may, Rafale jets, and other things. These technologies we are now bargaining to manufacture here, but earlier at that time, 90s, 92, they were not ready to. They were giving license to us, but not full. In the patent was with them. So they said, okay, lump sum payment of a sum of 2 million maximum and 5% royalty for domestic sales and 8% for exports. So suppose I just give you an example. Suppose I am Bosch, this is a company. I get a foreign technology agreement and I manufacture something. I give a lump sum payment of 2 million to get the right to manufacture it in India. And on the Indian sales, I get 5% royalty to them. And whatever I export, I give 8% royalty to them. So this is how more industries were coming to India because India was a low cost, even now is a low cost manufacturing base. And more or less some of the, as you will come to know, some of the pockets of India was developing as a very good manufacturing zones. Now come to the public sector. It was specified that public sector investment will be made in strategic areas. So earlier public sector was everywhere almost. Now public sector will be in specific areas, defense and some restricted areas. Was given more freedom. And beside that, private sector was also given more freedom in terms of entering in areas not reserved for it. So private sector. So what happens is that BEL is not necessarily will supply to NTPC. They can supply power plant to Tata Power also, the boilers and other things. So they can manufacture and sell it to anybody. Also, reservations were made for public sector. In public sector, apart from another interesting thing happened. Some of the public sector companies made government allowed public shareholding. Public sector undertakings were totally controlled by government. But increasingly, government said, okay, I will sell some shares, let public buy. So mutual funds, individuals. So this is how slowly we found sale shares coming into the market, BHEL shares coming into the market, NTPC shares coming into the market. What happened? Government got a lot of money, and subsequently they are also coming out with the public issue and raising money from the public and expanding. So this is the role of the public sector now, though owned by Government of India, but a lot of private money is also lying on them. MRTP Act allowed more freedom in terms of removing pre-entry restriction, prior approval from government, etc. And it also removed threshold limit for assets. So whatever the acts जितना था काफी dilute कर दिया MRTP Act को in 1991 and 1995 के बीच में. So analysis of the new industry policy, let us do a little bit. Announcement in 1991 होने का बाद there are some observation period is there. So after some observing period of 2-3 years, we could realize that we do not have a really export policy like the China had. Distortion in investment pattern. Some industry people were flocking. When there is a boom in the mobile phone, a lot of people were making mobile phone. Ultimately, now there are only two major and one Vodafone Idea is some or other river. So similarly, when it was opened up, everybody went to the cement manufacturing, but ultimately some cement manufacturing companies are surviving. So this was a problem which drew capital from the other side. So there was not a balanced growth. Another thing, everyone was trying to put up a new plant. So old plants needed modernization and diversification into new products and other category. That was not happening. So these are the observations. Critical observation was that new industry which are coming, they are more automated and they needed more less labor. So lot of labor were getting displaced. So there was a problem of employment also coming, lack of employment, right? As an example, I can tell you, Tata Nagar steel plant in Tata Nagar employs roughly 10,000 people. It used to, but Tata Nagar steel plant in Kalinganagar of Odisha employs direct hardly 1,500 employees because of the modern plant. So this puts pressure on employment, which is also a government's lookout. Lack of technological innovation effort intervened with an absence of incentive-based policy to encourage efficiency. We do not give much emphasis on research and development and innovation and another thing. We used to at that time. Okay, now of course you have innovation fund and other thing, etc. But till now, R&D expenditure of Indian corporate sector is less because government incentive in this area is less. Another thing happened that certain areas became much more industrialized because failure to designate or define a proper industrial location policy. One is mineral, it will be growing in the mineral rich areas, but manufacturing can grow in certain pockets. But that did not happen. And finally, a very important thing happened, highly skewed income distribution. That means some people becoming very rich, some people were not so rich. So those who got and took off, they made a lot of money, but a lot of people were sidelined. Well, however, there was some strength also. If there was weakness, there will be strength also. Changes in the industrial license policy were a breakthrough for efficiency, strengthen domestic firms. Internal deregulation was encouraged to strengthen legal framework with the formation of reconstruction of financial assets and enforcement of security interests. These are the things so that if a company is not doing well, somebody can take over and run it well. All these things were brought in phased manner. And finally, the main thing, that is the Competition Act 2003, so that anti-competitive practices are abolished, abuse of power. All in all, the aim of the policy changes aim to introduce an integrated economic package to create a suitable environment for promotion of efficiency, productivity, and industrial growth. So, what environment? For promotion of environment, for promotion of integrated promotion of environment for efficiency, productivity, and industrial growth through a well coordinated structure. This was the agenda. Now, state specific industrial policies. Now, you know, the state also has their own policies. Very often you find in the newspaper now full page ad, UP government is giving this is facilities, Tamil Nadu government is giving this is facilities, Gujarat government is giving these facilities and various things. Maharashtra is giving these facilities, etc. etc. So state governments have shown immense progress. Policies of states, but interestingly, policies of states in southern region, if you go deep into it, are a perfect example of how consistent and compliant policy helped the region in developing private enterprises and making investment beneficial while nurturing MSMEs. So what happened is that they make automobile or auto component, well, like Chennai and other thing, hub. So MSMEs were manufacturing the components; those were supplied to the automobile manufacturing companies, big giant companies. So the MSMEs were also growing, the car companies were also growing. Similarly, Tirupur became the garment manufacturing companies. They were being supplied by the car, other things as well as manpower, and they were exporting. So they grew up as a manufacturing hub for ready-made garments. Some of the areas, Perumpadur and other things, became the auto ancillary hub. Similarly, in Maharashtra, the Faridabad, where Bajaj makes their two wheelers, that has become the two-wheeler manufacturing hub. Gujarat, Sanand has become now a car manufacturing hub. Like that, some of the states, some of the pockets became manufacturing hub of some pockets, and this helped in curtailing unemployment at a drastic rate, particularly in South India. Bangalore was not focused much on manufacturing, but still they had some of the biggest companies like BEL, ITI, and ITI, of course, doesn't make anything anymore except EA, and like this BEL, etc. So the state-specific industrial policies are focused on simplification and overall development. But unfortunately, you will see that eastern side, Bihar, Bengal, Northeast are lagging behind. Odisha of late has picked up industrializations and etc. because of their open policies and etc. So a comparative analysis, if we do a comparative analysis, helps in understanding the initiatives of various states in terms of industrialization, and thus also suggests way forward for other states to devise and implement industrial policy in each state. You will see the Hyderabad and other areas has become, and Gujarat in some way has become the pharmaceutical hubs. So some of the states have developed expertise and the manufacturing and the facilities around that, and has progressed a lot. But some are not. Madhya Pradesh is in pockets. Indore is developed, but other parts of Madhya Pradesh is not so developed, etc., etc. So we find that state-specific industrial policies, it depended on the how state has created the policy aligned with the central government policy, as well as their own strength and weakness and competitive advantage, and how consistent they were with their policies. Okay. Other important policies focusing on industrial promotion. Now, the competition policy, this is a very big thing which happened during the when we were changing different industrial policies, and incrementally we were improvising our industrial policies to make it much easier, make it much more real. So, competition policy was announced, Competition Act 2003, and it removed MRTPC totally. And then Competition Commission of India was soon established. The job is to stop practice which adversely affect competition. So let there be free competition. Let the fit survive. Encourage and endure competition in the market. Unethical competition is not allowed. Ensure quality of products and services is up to the mark. So the consumer has the choice. Consumer is the king. So if you do not like Dove, you should have another soap you can go and buy. You want to buy a bike, Bajaj you don't like, you should have another bike equally competitive good you can go and buy. So you have a choice. Now you have a choice. And allow freedom of trade in the markets of India. Let everything be available everywhere. But GST has been brought in, so the tax structure is also simplified, and things are available pan India, everything. And special economic zone was created 2006 May, which is mainly for developing and promoting manufacturing and exports. This is copying China. We wanted to develop some economic zone. We'll be focusing on manufacturing and exporting. So they were given a lot of benefits like no custom duty, no tariff, and other thing. They can import the raw materials, they can manufacture, they can lay off people, they can pay different type of incentive structure there. So a lot of Factories Act, Workers Act, all those things have been reduced. The intensity of them has been reduced so that they can freely compete with the global players in a global scale, and India become an important export hub. This is a China model we wanted to copy, and we have become of late a little success with the mobile phones, with the automobiles, and maybe sooner or later we'll be exporting semiconductors and other various things, electronic items, and there are focus on various states are taking the initiative, and in due course of time we are trying to manufacture. You will be surprised that we are one of the largest manufacturer and exporter of two-wheelers, in the sense motorbikes and scooters, mainly motorbikes. Bajaj exports to Africa, South America, and other places. A lot many cars which are manufactured in India are not sold in India but goes out Europe, Africa, and other places. We make a lot of iPhone story and Samsung story. So these are now manufactured in India and goes out in a huge numbers. Beside that, we had some competitive advantage earlier in the garments and other segments, leather, etc. But we have to create competitive advantage in these areas. We need more patent or more products which are basically we have patents on that. So now to summarize what I have told you, it was 1947 when we got the independence, a devastated country, very low capital base, very low education base of the people, very less technical skills. And at that moment in 1947, we got the freedom. But at that time, there were a couple of models available. One is Russia ka heavy machinery model. One was American capitalist model, and we chose a mixed model. Initially, we went because there was a lack of capital, so government took the responsibility of investing, as I told you earlier, the entrepreneur role to set up big industries which can make machines and other things which the medium size or small industries can use to manufacture other products and etc., and creating infrastructure. So accordingly, the Industrial Development and Regulation Act was promulgated so that the money is used for productive purposes in which nations want to grow and develop. So, as you put it here, national development objectives. But 40 years, I can call it 51 to 91, we were progressing toward a socialist pattern of growth, but in which a rich was becoming richer and there was a sizable unemployment growth. We are not modernizing our economy. We are running behind the world because we were our basic policy was self-reliant and self-sustaining. So we were in many cases rediscovering the wheel and wasting money, which could have been easily imported, and we could have added value to that and we could have exported that. This realization came when the socialist way of progressing was not generating the desired result, and as well as it was putting a drain on our foreign exchange reserve, as well as creating a huge amount of unemployment or lack of employment opportunity. So 1991 came with a big bang reform, and I told you in July 24 we came out with a new industry policy, and we broke out of the 40 years of legacy of licensing. You can manufacture this, you can manufacture here, you can manufacture there, you cannot manufacture this, you can manufacture up to this, you can manufacture not more than this, all these things. We made it free and we made it focused on that. Okay, competition should be there. If you are interested to import, there is foreign investment promotion board. They will check your capability, capacity, and whether it is beneficial for the country or not, it adds value to the country's growth opportunities or not, and they will give you the permission. You set up the plant, you modernize yourself. Old plants, if you are unable to run, you can sell it up to somebody else who can run it up and down. In the process, Tata acquired a lot of plants, and Tata is now one of the major steel producers globally. Similarly, Bajaj is one of the largest producer of motorbikes, and similarly, Ultratech Cement is one of the largest cement producers globally. Hindalco is one of the largest aluminium processor and producer in globally. And this is how, after 91 to 2006, we have progressed a lot, and now we are also getting into the manufacturing of defense because private sector has been allowed to participate in some of the manufacturing and other things are there. We are focusing a lot on new technologies, that is semiconductor and space technology and other things. So with technology and innovation, selected state government has shown immense progress. As I am taking the session, there are different states which have made a lot of progress in new generation technology or emerging technologies, and sooner or later, India is becoming a powerful and a dominant country in industrial and new generation industrial, and in which this Competition Act, Special Economic Zone Act, as well as the new industrial policy, as and as when it is updated, it has created a big role. Thanking you. With this, we complete our basic understanding of industrial policy resolution of 48 to our journey through the industrial growth of India and where we stand now. With this, I come to an end of today's session. Thanking you. I'm Professor Binodgopal Mukherji.